So I had an experience recently that taught me a really valuable lesson about vulnerability and just what can be gained by being vulnerable. So in brief, that experience involved this is going to sound kind of weird, but a group grieving session. It was basically a context in which a group of men could express grief freely, and it was all built with that intention in mind. By the way, I hope the wind isn't totally just destroying the microphone right now. I apologize if it is. So this was a weekend event that I signed up for and showed up with 40 some other guys, and the whole event was really built around creating an environment where men could express emotion and explore emotion and talk about emotion, and then ultimately to partake in a grieving ceremony. Now I was there for a number of reasons, but on the grieving side of things, I wanted to go there and grieve for my dad. And there were other people with similar losses, but also people that maybe just wanted to grieve for the loss of a childhood that they didn't get to have, or one that they got and they didn't want, or whatever. A lot of people with we've all got various parent issues to deal with, and you didn't necessarily have to have a death in the family to need to grieve, I guess is what I'm saying. Anyway, it was a really powerful experience, to put it mildly. And it showed me something really important, and that was that confronting or being face to face with something as powerful and as sensitive as grief, really putting it out there and doing so with supportive people around you, it was empowering. It was a path by which I got power. I realize I just defined empowering, but we don't normally think of things like that as a place to get power from. And what I mean is, if you brainstorm like, oh, how can I feel more powerful? I don't know that most of us would go to, oh, I should, cry my eyes out in front of a bunch of other men. It's not the default answer. At least it's not mine. But I found in that experience, I came out of it more powerful. I came out of it more confident, and I came out of it with this just incredible lesson that if I want more energy, if I want more drive, if I want to feel a stronger connection to my own personal source of power, then I get there by doing the things and feeling the feelings that seem scary to me, that seem dangerous, that seem like they've got a repelling effect on me. Let me think about that for a second. So, by being there with my weaknesses, that did something to how I feel about my own abilities or trajectory, you know? And well, it ended up being something that now I'm like looking for a way to do it again. I'm like wondering, okay, how do I get more of that? Because it's such a powerful injection into, you know, what I'm doing and why and where I'm going and all of that, that I just can't ignore it. You know, I can't. It seems like ignoring that angle to my own growth would be ignoring the accelerator pedal in my car. It's sort of like, well, that's the thing that makes me go. So being vulnerable. This is a cool topic. I love it. Being in such a way that you could receive harm, you know, by opening yourself up, that makes you less fragile. Isn't that weird? That you could, it's like you're taking off your armor so that you can be stronger. You know, on one hand it's weird, on the other hand it makes perfect sense. You know, if you are walking around in your daily life armored, you know, if you don't let things affect you, and if you are constantly on guard and prepared for attack, and I don't know how many different ways I can say it, but building up those emotional walls, I think you end up, on the inside, you end up getting weak, I guess. You end up, it's almost like if you have a cast on a broken arm, the arm atrophies and gets weak. And if you build up a lot of armor around your emotions, I think you get kind of weak as a result of that. And so I'm doing this kind of thing to explore that for myself, to explore my own sense of what scares me, you know, like what things do I subconsciously fear might make me, you know, vulnerable to attack. And for me, those things are just, you know, putting myself out there, expressing myself. And this is, you know, kind of what I'm doing right now, but what I'm doing right now doesn't necessarily make me scared. This is me talking about the thing, but it's not necessarily doing the thing. And I don't necessarily know fully what that thing is, and this is a part of that process of learning about myself and just kind of taking steps before I'm ready. But I know now, in a much more clear and, you know, visceral way, that doing something that is scary, that makes me feel vulnerable and at risk in an emotional way, that is where I get power from. Yeah, because you have to know, like, if you're going to the grocery store, you got to know what fucking aisle the thing you want is in. And this whole time, I'd been thinking that it was in a different section of the store. Like, I thought, not consciously, but in my actions, I was always going to the places where I was strong. You know? Like, that's just how I operated. Was that I lived in the areas where I was strongest. And I was avoiding the areas where I was weak. And if I take that to, say, a fitness mindset, in the land of fitness, your most valuable gains are going to be in the areas where you are weakest. But you might avoid those because you're weak and that makes you feel bad. And so you stick with the thing that you're already strong at. And I would do that at the gym too. I would go to the gym and I would do something that I was already good at, because in the doing of it, it made me feel good about myself. It was like an expression of how I was successful, and I could show off and I could say, hey, this is what I'm good at, watch me. And so I would avoid doing the things that actually had the potential to make me improve in a meaningful way. And so that's how I feel now. Okay, now I'm getting started. That's how I feel about how the event went, where I was able to grieve in a very vulnerable way in front of a lot of people, with a lot of people, not necessarily in front of, but with other people. And in doing the thing that made me feel weak and made me feel low and was, an ultimate expression of vulnerability, in doing that, I made a huge personal leap in growth. Because that's where I needed to do the work. And so that becomes then maybe a good basis for my own personal compass for how to navigate what I'm doing and why. Because I can look at areas of my life and say, I've already got these areas pretty well dialed, but these other areas really, really weak and not well developed. Obviously, I need to focus on the areas that are not well developed. And for me, being authentic and genuine, in a way, is one of my weak spots. Like, I can do this thing fairly well, but there's a youthful, joyful part of me that I repress for whatever reasons. A goofy side, playful, and I got so hung up on presenting a more serious and capable and, well, as I would say, poker-faced version of myself. But getting comfortable with being anything I want to be is something that I want to work on. And there's an example. I always like to ask, like, if someone is really good at X, what does that do for their life? And so in this example, someone that is able to access a very clear, I don't know if I want to say version of themselves, but if they have deep access to themselves and they're not ashamed of that, what does that allow them to do? What do they turn into? Do they run really successful businesses or something, or are they artists, or what does that look like? And someone I was thinking of this morning that I think fits into that is Jim Carrey, and just how he was able to manifest his amazing acting career by having that intense, close channel to a very deep part of himself that he was able to put out publicly in a way that really connected with people, and in a way that I have to assume was incredibly scary for him to really accept and step into this thing that he believed he could do. And his movie Ace Ventura really stuck with me because I saw it as a kid, and kids are better connected with that, and they respond to it in others. And so when an adult like Jim Carrey in the movie is able to be so outrageous, and he's doing that on a film set in front of dozens of people with, film in the camera running, and lots of he's got lots of skin in the game, and he's still able to do that. To me, that's amazing. And I want to explore that kind of thing, because I know that if I tried something like that, if I as an exercise, if I tried to say be my own version of Ace Ventura on camera, that would be an incredible growth experience because of how scary it would be for me to do it. I think it's even hard to really grasp just how far you have to go to make it look like that on camera. Like you might think that you're doing something kind of similar on camera, and then you would watch the footage and be like, oh wow, I wasn't even close. I was so reserved. I held back so much. I saw an interview with Jim Carrey, and he was talking about how he was he was basically going into a fugue state. Like he would lose track of what his surroundings were and what he was doing almost. That's how deep he had to go. It's just amazing. Acting is such a wild thing to do as a person. It's so I think it's a deep thing, it's a deep and powerful thing that people can do. I have a lot of respect for actors. So I think someone like Jim Carrey embodies that, of the power of vulnerability, of the power of being you and accepting that you can do anything, and that it doesn't matter what other people think. And then you get something in return for that. You get something. You get power. Your personal power. And rock stars may embody that just as well, or other artists that are really connecting with their genuine self. Okay, I have a sinking feeling that the wind is ruining the audio on this, and so I'm gonna wrap it up there, and I'll check the video and see how it goes. And if I post this, thanks for watching, and I'm really grateful that I'm getting some feedback, and that's awesome. So I really appreciate the time that it takes to partake in this weird conversation on the internet. So thank you. All right, have a great day.